Have you ever stayed quiet when you really should have said something? Not because you didn't know better, not because you agreed, but because in that moment it felt easier to stay silent than to risk being seen as difficult. And then later, you replayed it in your mind. You think about what you should have said, what you wish you would have done, how you let something slide that should have never slid in the first place. Today, I want to talk about speaking up for yourself. Because sometimes, if you don't speak up, people will absolutely take advantage of your silence. Not because they're cruel, not always because they're malicious, but sometimes because your silence makes them think this must be okay. And sometimes it's not okay. Hey friends, welcome back to Ways of Change. I'm Vanessa. This is day 69 of the journey of posting for 100 days straight. Today we're talking about what it means to use your voice in different situations, especially when everything in you wants to stay quiet. Because speaking up for yourself is not about being rude. It's not about being combative. It's not about creating drama. It's about being clear, about protecting your peace. It's about honoring your dignity. And for a whole lot of us, especially women in midlife, those of us who are raised to be nice, accommodating, agreeable, this is a lesson, a real one. So today I'm going to share the job hunt update, a personal story that happened to me on an airplane, a scripture anchor, and 2 journaling prompts to help you process where this may be showing up in your own life. So here's today's job hunt update. I didn't submit any applications. There wasn't anything in my wheelhouse to apply for on USA Jobs or clearanceJobs.com. And let me say this, these days can be frustrating because when you're in pursuit of something, you want momentum. You want movement. You want to feel like you're making measurable progress every single day. But even though I didn't submit an application today, I did complete my engagement hour. And I also posted a clip from yesterday's episode. You find it here. So I was still in motion, still showing up, still building, still staying visible. And I think that matters. Progress doesn't always look like an application submitted. Sometimes progress looks like consistency. It looks like staying engaged. It looks like posting the clip. And sometimes progress looks like not quitting on a quiet day. So even though there was nothing to apply for, I still honored the journey. And that connects so well with today's topic. Because one of the ways we speak up for ourselves is by refusing to disappear, refusing to shrink, refusing to constantly adjust ourselves to make everybody else comfortable. A lot of us have been conditioned to keep the peace at our own expense, to let it go, to be polite, to scooch over, to not say anything, to just deal with it. But keeping the peace on the outside while losing it on the inside is not peace. That's suppression. That's resentment. That's self-abandonment. And over time, that does something to you. It does something to your confidence. It does something to your nervous system, your relationships, your sense of self-respect. Because every time you silence yourself in a moment that needed your voice, you teach yourself that your comfort is optional. Speaking up for yourself doesn't only happen in one kind of situation. It shows up everywhere. It shows up at work, in families, in friendships. It shows up in business, in public spaces. It also shows up in healthcare, most definitely. At work, speaking up might look like clarifying expectations instead of silently carrying confusion. It might look like naming your contribution instead of letting people overlook what you've done. It might look like asking questions instead of pretending you understand something you really need explained. In families, it might look like saying no without writing a whole essay. It might look like asking not to be spoken to in a certain way. It might look like telling the truth about what you can and you can't carry. And then in friendships, it might look like addressing a one-sided dynamic. It might look like saying that hurt me. It might look like no longer always being the one who bends. And then in business, it might look like setting a clear boundary around your time, your rates, your energy, your value. Because if you don't advocate for your work, people will often treat your calling like it's casual. And then there are public spaces, y'all. These everyday moments, the ordinary situations that don't seem deep until they reveal something deeper. And that brings me to the airplane story. So I was on this flight, and you already know airplane seats are not exactly spacious. Everybody's trying to get settled, get comfortable, get their bags where they need to be, and survive the flight with as much peace as possible. And I noticed this man sitting next to me was slowly, very slowly, trying to take over my foot space. You know, that little space where your feet go, where you can put your bag and you have room for your feet. It was subtle at first, just a little shift, a little push, a little more leaning, a little more assumption. And that's how it happens in life sometimes. People don't always bulldoze their way in. They move inch by inch. They test, they press, they expand. They wait to see if you'll move. At first, I adjusted. I shifted my feet a little. I tried to be polite, tried to be gracious. But then something in me said, wait a minute. Why am I shrinking in my paid for space? Why am I the one folding myself up like a pretzel because somebody else decided my space is available? And in that moment, I realized if I don't speak up, he's going to keep doing this. So I did. Not rude, not loud, not disrespectful, but clear. I let him know that he was in my space. And just like that, he adjusted. And what stayed with me later was not just the moment. It was how easy it would have been to stay quiet. How easy it would have been to tell myself, oh, it's no big deal. How easy it would have been to sit there uncomfortable for the rest of the flight just to avoid a little tension. But why should I be uncomfortable because somebody else counted on my silence? That little airplane moment reminded me of something bigger, y'all. A lot of us have been socialized to surrender comfort in order to appear agreeable, to scoot over, to make room, to not complain, to absorb inconvenience quietly. And I just don't believe that's the lesson anymore. I don't. Now, let me be clear, though. Speaking up for yourself doesn't mean every situation requires a confrontation. It doesn't mean every moment deserves a speech. It doesn't mean you have to be hard to be heard. Sometimes just one sentence. This is my space. That doesn't work for me. I'm not comfortable with that. Please don't speak to me that way. That's not what I agreed to. I need clarity. I said no. That's not aggression. That's clarity. And clarity is kindness to yourself. When you don't speak up, the cost is often bigger than the actual moment because the moment may pass, but the feeling stays, the resentment stays, the frustration, the replays stays. The I should have said something stays. And if you ever had one of those moments where you kept replaying the interaction in your mind afterwards, hear this. Don't shame yourself. Don't shame yourself. There's usually a reason. A lot of us learned early that speaking up could lead to conflict, rejection, punishment, or misunderstanding. A lot of us learned that being easy to deal with was way safer than being honest. A lot of us learned that having needs made us inconvenient. So if using your voice feels uncomfortable now, that doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It means you may be unlearning something old. Here's the hard truth. Some people take silence as permission, not because they're deeply malicious. Sometimes it's simply because nobody challenged them. Nobody corrected them. Nobody said, actually, no. So they kept going. That's why speaking up matters, because some people learn how to treat you by what you allow, what you address, and what you continually excuse. And that doesn't mean you blame yourself for how others behave. It means you become more aware of where your voice is needed, where you're shrinking, where you're over-accommodating, where you're saying yes when you mean no, where you're staying silent just to avoid tension. Because those places may be the exact places where your voice is trying to get stronger. So let me clear this up. Speaking up for yourself is not being rude. It's not being dramatic. It's not being selfish. It's not being unkind. It's not picking a fight. Speaking up for yourself is honoring your dignity. It's protecting your peace. It's naming what is true. It's refusing self-abandonment. It's practicing self-respect in real time. You could be gracious and still be firm. You could be kind and still say no. You could be loving and still have limits. And for some of us, that right there is the lesson. I think this topic hits differently in midlife too, because by this point, many of us have lived enough life to know what it feels like to look back and say, I should have said something then. We have enough history to see the patterns, enough experience to recognize the moments we swallowed our truth, enough wisdom to understand how expensive that's been. Maybe it's about becoming clear. Maybe it's about no longer abandoning yourself in real time. Maybe it's about trusting your own discomfort enough to pay attention to it. That's part of reinvention too. Reinvention is not just changing jobs or moving countries or starting a business. Sometimes reinvention is becoming the kind of woman who no longer silently scoots over. Let's get into our scripture for today. Today's scripture is Proverbs 31, verses 8 and 9. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly, defend the rights of the poor and needy. I love this scripture for today because it reminds us that using your voice is not automatically disrespectful. Setting a boundary is not a character flaw. Telling the truth is not rebellion. There's something deeply healthy and deeply holy about clarity, about refusing to call self-erasure peace, about refusing to disappear just to keep everyone else comfortable. Maybe this season is asking you to master holy clarity, to speak up with wisdom, to speak up with calm, to speak with dignity, to speak with courage, even if your voice shakes. Because sometimes the most spiritual thing you could do is say, no, that hurt me. That's not okay. I need better. Please stop. I deserve to be treated with respect. That doesn't make you difficult. That makes you honest. Sometimes people don't speak up because they genuinely don't know what to say in the moment. So let me give you a few simple phrases you can keep in your back pocket. Actually, I'm not comfortable with that. That doesn't work for me. I need a little more space. Let me clarify something. My favorite, well, one of my favorites. I want to make sure we're on the same page. I'm going to stop you there. Please don't speak to me that way. I need time to think before I commit. That's outside of what we agreed to. I'm not okay with that. These aren't speeches. They're tools, and sometimes one clear sentence can shift the entire dynamic. Here's the mindset shift for today. Speaking up for yourself is not creating conflict. It's creating clarity. That's the shift. Because a lot of us avoid speaking up. We don't want drama. We don't want tension. We don't want to be seen as difficult. We don't want somebody to get upset. But clarity is not drama. A boundary is not drama. A respectful correction is not drama. Honesty is not drama. Sometimes what feels rude is actually just unfamiliar firmness. Sometimes what feels mean is actually you no longer over-accommodating people. Sometimes what feels uncomfortable is not that you're wrong, it's just that the pattern is changing. And not everybody will like that. Let's be honest. Some people benefit from the version of you that doesn't speak up. They do. Some people benefit from your silence. So when you begin to use your voice, some dynamics will shift. But that doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It may simply mean you're finally doing something different. So if this is hard for you, start small. You don't have to become the boldest person in the room by tomorrow. You don't have to turn every irritation into a big speech. You don't have to become hard in order to become clear. Just start by noticing first. Notice when your body tenses. Notice when your stomach drops. Notice when you say yes, but you mean no. When you leave an interaction and you keep replaying it in your mind. That might be the very place where your voice is asking to be used. Then practice one sentence, one honest sentence, one respectful sentence, one clear sentence. That's how change starts. Not with perfection, with practice. And over time, you build self-trust. You build evidence that you could use your voice and survive it. You build evidence that your needs are not too much. And that changes something deep inside of you. This whole reinvention journey has required me to speak up for myself in new ways too. To keep showing up, to keep posting, to keep naming what I want, to keep honoring the life I'm trying to build. Even on a day like today, when there was nothing in my wheelhouse, I still have to speak life over the journey. I still have to remind myself my path is valid. My next chapter is valid. My voice matters. My dreams matter. And maybe that's where some of you are too. Maybe nobody is crowding your foot space on an airplane, but maybe someone is crowding your mental space, your emotional space, your peace, your confidence, your calling. And today is the day you stop silently scooting over. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to be heard. You are allowed to ask questions. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to clarity. And you are allowed to protect your peace. Not because you're trying to dominate, not because you're trying to control, not because you're trying to be harsh, but because you have value. You have dignity. Your silence should not be at the price of someone else's comfort. So the next time you feel that moment rising, that moment where somebody is pushing, assuming, crowding, taking, or overstepping, take a breath and remember, you do not have to disappear to be considered kind. So let's get to our journaling prompts. Prompt number 1. Where in my life have I been staying silent to keep the peace, even when it costs me my comfort or self-respect? Number 2. What is one situation in my life right now where I need to speak up more clearly and honestly? Sit with those. Be honest with yourself, because awareness is where the shift begins. So that's day 69 of Ways of Change. No applications submitted today, but I did complete my engagement hour. I posted a clip from yesterday's episode. You'll find the episode here. And I'm still moving forward one day at a time. And today's reminder is simple. Speak up for yourself. Because if you don't, there will be moments when people take advantage of your silence. And you deserve better than a life where you're always shrinking to make everyone else feel comfortable. If this episode spoke to you, let me know in the comments. Have you ever had a moment where you wish you had spoken up for yourself? Or a moment where you finally did? And if this encouraged you, share it with someone who may need this reminder too. Hey y'all, I'm Vanessa and this is Ways of Change. I'll see you tomorrow for day 70. Bye.